Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Issue 1, coronating Trump.
Friends, delegates, and fellow Americans, I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States.
Donald Trump this week became the official Republican Party nominee for president after days of speeches by members of Mr. Trump's family and his supporters. The billionaire businessman promised a better future to the American people. His speech at the convention arena in Cleveland, Ohio, focused on 4 key themes. First, strengthening U.S. borders and reducing immigration. Second, trade-based efforts to reduce imports and boost U.S. manufacturing. Third, improving law and order in U.S. communities. Fourth, seeking a more positive relationship with Russia while taking more aggressive action against international terrorist groups. Still, the convention also had its complications. Various delegates walked out of the hall in protest at Mr. Trump. And elements of a speech by Mr. Trump's wife, Melania, were lifted from First Lady Michelle Obama's address to the 2008 Democratic Convention. Pat, give us your assessment of Trump's acceptance speech.
I think the acceptance speech hit every base he wanted to hit. You mentioned 4 of them up there. You've got securing the border, you've got trade deals that stop it deindustrializing America, staying out of wars that are none of our business, and the new law and order, which goes back to 1968. I think it was a very powerful speech, John. He's decided, throw away political correctness. He's going to run as Donald Trump on the issues that brought him to his convention. I think the Mike Pence choice came out better, frankly, than I originally thought. I think Pence compliments him very well. His family is really, Melania and Ivanka and those kids, I think the country was impressed with him. Look, I think he's got a fighting chance to be the next president of the United States, and I think his speech overall helped him all across America. The question is, does America want Donald Trump?
He's quite a showman, reality TV showman. He's also a con man. He laid out all of this, first of all, this apocalyptic vision of America, like we're all, terrified, hunkered down in our cities, and the immigrants are coming to get us. Now, he saved the speech towards the end. It did get more optimistic, but then he says he's going to do all of these things. He doesn't say how he's going to do any of these things, and he expects us to just believe him when he says, I am your voice, I will fix this. And I must say that the daughter, Ivanka, she's beautiful and she's smart, and she gets up there and says he's going to change the labor laws. he's going to make sure that everybody has affordable daycare, child care. The Republican Party just put out a platform that in the end, they took out a plank saying they're opposed to preschool because it interferes with the family raising their children. So, and I haven't heard much from Donald Trump about all these women's issues that she's championing. Yeah. It is such a con job, but you have a lot of Americans pay maybe casual attention to politics, and if you can elect one guy and he's going to fix everything, I think there's some appeal there. The Democrats have to come back strong next week in Philadelphia.
Here's the thing, though. Look, the speech, in terms of the way it was delivered, what it focused on, spoke to people's concerns. And the distance between, I think, what some of us think and what other people think about concern about law and order, about concern about illegal immigration. In the case of trade, as much as I disagree with that, how much appeal that has in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania, where a poll this week in Ohio during the convention showed Clinton and Trump neck and neck. And at the same time, I think Trump's utility is that in his aggressive sort of passion, that sparks appeal in people. And I thought it was a very well-written speech, and I also think it'll be reflected on a poll boost coming up. And the distance between, as much as Eleanor says, yes, there was an absence of specifics in policy terms, that is true. Well, the problem with the Democrats is what I think we'll see from Hillary Clinton coming up is a lot of proposals that are completely uncosted. And so there is this divergence, and ultimately people will make their choice.
She's actually costed out all her
No,
proposals.
she hasn't. She has not costed those proposals.
Well, she's costing them out more than Trump has, I'm sure, which isn't saying much. But you make a good point, though. I think what's important here is, why is Trump so popular? Well, he's particularly popular with that demographic of people who feel both displaced and ignored, unlistened to. Folks like my Ohio hometown, where the steel mill is way down compared to where it used to be. All 5 paper mills are gone now. I mean, that deindustrialization, folks don't all understand. The one thing they do understand is they used to be able to make a middle-class income without a high school diploma or anything beyond high school. They can't do that now, and they need some explanation for this. They need to hear from government that they're doing something about it. And so trade has become really symbolic, Pat, an issue you're very familiar with. This trade issue is something that is symbolic of a whole host of problems. It was ironic to me, though, while the convention was going on there in Cleveland, we were in the press center very close to some very large tanker ships there. I mean, import goes both ways, and you do make money as a country off of this.
But he does, no doubt about it. Well, to me, of course, the trade thing, it works for the reason that we've had, 25 years of these trade deals, and why China's exploded and we haven't is all our factories and jobs are going overseas. And what Trump has, and I agree with you, the details aren't there. He is the change candidate. I see these problems here. I'm going to do something about them. Maybe there's not any details, but I'm not sure what Hillary offers America in terms of, here's the agenda. Obama, I saw it. People said, look, here's somebody new. We've got to try something new. But I don't know what she has to offer that goes up against that power.
What she has to offer reflects the America that we did not see in the convention hall in Cleveland. If you were sitting in your living room and watching that virtually all-white crowd, that is not how America looks today, and screaming, lock her up about Hillary Clinton. In a democracy, you do not lock up your political opponents unless you want to elect an authoritarian who's going to do that sort of thing. That was way over the top.
I agree, Hillary had a bad convention.
It's pageantry. Politics is pageantry.
Are we doing next week's show today?
That was a good convention for her, because that repelled people watching it.
Was Ted Cruz's missing endorsement politically suicidal?
For him, I believe it was. I like Ted Cruz, but to get up, the party wants to get together. We got one chance of winning this, and we understand he was wounded badly and hurt badly by that. But you don't get up and damage the chances of everybody else who want to win this thing. And so I think Cruz will never be nominated, in my judgment, by the Republican Party.
The Donald one-upped him anyway. He appeared out of nowhere, gave it the thumbs up. Actually, he reacted the same way to what Cruz did to President Obama's put-down of him at that White House Correspondents' Dinner long ago. He smiled and took it jovially, but I'll tell you, Cruz is probably dead to him from now on.
There in the hall, it was really such pandemonium. At first, I thought the crowd was chanting for Cruz. Cruz, Cruz, but they were booing, actually. And it was just explosive. Meanwhile, over the other side, people are cheering for Trump, who's just arrived with his family, with that grand entrance. So you got both at the same time.
Him showing up there was at the top of the stairs.
How long
was very dramatic.
How long did it take you to figure that out?
Well, we figure out the booing. I didn't keep a stopwatch, John, but
from what you were there, Clarence. It seems that, but conventions, from my experience, are always it's about pageantry, right? Yes, it used to before '68, it was the deals, it was the the brokering, but now it is pageantry. And so, what do we expect?
But I love the raw politics. It was a real convention,
That's right.
In that sense, and rather than having the people gone through and delivering these great old Republican balanced the budget speeches, it was a convention. It was a great convention.
Yes, some actual business snuck in.
Not only business, things happened we didn't anticipate.
That's right.
Issue 2, King Erdogan.
We decided to recommend to the government that a state of emergency be declared.
A week after a failed coup by elements of the Turkish military, President Obama and European leaders are pressing Turkey to maintain the democratic principles of its constitution. And President Erdogan is being warned that Turkey will not be allowed to join the EU if he reintroduces the death penalty. Still, President Erdogan says he is acting to clear a quote-unquote virus from Turkish institutions. But the numbers tell another tale. Around 50,000 judges and prosecutors, civil servants, teachers, and university deans have been detained. And that has some Turks worried that Mr. Erdogan, an Islamist, is trying to centralize power and destroy its domestic opponent. And note another controversy. Turkey has accused an anti-Erdogan activist, Fethullah Gulen, of involvement in the coup attempt and wants him extradited from Pennsylvania. After referral from the White House, the State Department is now considering that extradition request. Question: what effect will the failed coup have on U.S.-Turkish relations? Clarence Page.
Well, I think in the short term, we're still assessing. I mean, the U.S. is still assessing what the impact is. There's even some, that's a culture rife with rumors. There's even rumors that it wasn't a real coup attempt. It was just an Erdogan excuse for him to go out and be able to arrest thousands of people. He's been arresting a lot of people all along, including journalists, among others. He's truly become more and more autocratic. And seems indifferent to the rest of the world. We have to pay attention. They're in such a sensitive position. They've got nukes. They're in NATO, but how do you get some leverage with him when he is thoroughly uncooperative as far as the outside world is concerned at this point?
You know, when Trump was asked by the New York Times about his reaction to the Turkish coup and how he would respond, he said that he didn't think the U.S. had any standing to lecture Turkey because, you know, we're having policemen shot down dead in our streets, right, which is rather an odd position to take, that you can't project small d democratic values. And so I think, I mean, I would hope that the coup has little impact on the U.S.-Turkish relationship because they are so important as a member of NATO and they're an ally in the fight in Syria. I would imagine the State Department will sit on that extradition request and drag it out and hope that the backlash to the coup dissipates.
I think this is historic, John, and I think it's very, very serious. Turkey's got the second largest army in NATO. It's one of the most populous countries in NATO. We got nuclear weapons at Incirlik, major base we use to attack ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. They're an invaluable ally. We've had troubles with them, but what it looks like is that Erdogan is going to clean house of all his adversaries, especially these Gulenite characters. He's going to be in trouble with us trying to get Gulen because I don't think we're going to send him over there.
Exactly.
And so, as for joining the EU is not going to bring 80, 90 million Muslims into the European Union. I think, you know, this could be a dramatic change affecting both the outcome of some of these wars over there and really the future of NATO and the future of the EU.
Why is Erdogan purging academics, teachers, and the military?
Erdogan does not like political opposition. His palace. You know, I had my piece writing about the coup attempt. I think the palace that he built is a metaphor for his personality. I think he wants to be a kind of Imam Ataturk to fundamentally reshape Turkey under the banner of authoritarian leadership and Islamism under his interpretation. The problem we face is that everyone else mentions, you know, as a NATO member, our nuclear weapons there. We should withdraw them, I think. And we're not going to back down. We can't back down with Erdogan now because it is about democracy. And it's also incredibly important in terms of Turkey is that for a long time when he first entered office as a great leader, but prospectively leading Turkey into a new democratic age blended with Islamism, backing away from that, we cannot be a counterpoint to that because if we do, then we lose lose that great opportunity.
But look, when you talk about, the question is, it could very well come down to whether we're going to have a democracy in Turkey or whether we're going to have a NATO ally in Turkey, because it looks to me, quite frankly, like traditional democracy is on the way out right now. This individual is bitter and angry. He's got an authoritarian personality, and he could well be on the way to Putinism in Turkey. And then the United States is going to have to make a very serious call
No, the United States is not going to say no democracy. We don't deal with him. We all know how the U.S. is going to react to that. You deal with the regime that's there. They're too important. But Brexit passed in part because the Leavers were claiming you're going to bring in all these Muslims, and they were scaring people. Turkey has been and still is a Muslim country that has been largely secular and has been a model for the kind of governance that we're looking for.
It's affected by the Islamic uprising all across that world. Yeah. I mean, Islam has been rising for a couple of decades now, and is rising in Turkey. And in a way, he's responding to that too.
If he continues upon this if he continues upon this track, Turkey will not be able to remain a NATO member because it is too unstable, and our interests will divorce. I mean, we talk about practical terms. Can you rely upon Erdogan as a reliable NATO member based on what he's doing at the moment?
Look what he did. He went and shot down a Russian aircraft in Syria. And here we're going to guarantee him, and under Article 5, go to war if he goes to war with Russia?
He needs to stop this purge.
They're not going to kick Turkey out of NATO.
Well,
that's my prediction.
We'll see.
Should the U.S. extradite Fethullah Gulen to Turkey to placate President Erdogan?
Not unless they can find hard evidence that he was directly behind the coup.
Yeah. Right.
What
I
Pat
agree
said.
with that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got to have some evidence.
Rule of law
for extradition, and you're right. They can drag it out, and I think we will drag it out as long as we can.
Mm-hmm. I say no. Gulen should only be extradited after a judicial determination of grounds to do so. Issue 3: no Russians in Rio. The World Anti-Doping Agency Commission reported this week on the systematic use of performance-enhancing drugs by Russian athletes. The Russian state-sponsored doping program was supported by Russian intelligence services, and it quote-unquote planned and operated at the London 2012 Summer Olympics and Sochi 2014 Winter Olympics. The International Olympic Committee is considering banning the Russian Olympics. Russia is furious. President Putin says a Russian whistleblower who assisted with the report is quote-unquote a Judas. Russia, Mr. Putin believes, is suffering a conspiracy from Western powers. Will the IOC be justified in banning Russia from Rio? Helena.
Well, we were just talking about evidence concerning the coup in Turkey. I think there's plenty of evidence that Russian athletes were doping. I'm not sure whether the evidence continues to the present day and that the current set of athletes preparing for Rio, they would have to be tested. So I think there should be a penalty, but I would like to see Russia compete, and if the current crop of athletes can be clean, I think they should be allowed to go ahead. So that's my
agree with Eleanor
point of view.
100%. Look, it looks like that there was, as they say, state sponsor behind this program to drug up, and a lot of people involved in it. But I would hate to see first the athletes who have trained for 4 years and who haven't taken these drugs and who can pass drug tests in Rio before they compete. I think they ought to be allowed to compete. Secondly, there's clearly, I mean, Putin clearly sees this. They're sticking it to me again. And I don't think that would help relationships between the United States and Putin and Russia. So I would say, do not throw the whole team out of the Olympics.
I'm conflicted, but I have a friend who's a Russian athlete who's supposed to be going there, and as much as she disagrees with my politics on Russia, I trust her implicitly. The problem we have here is that when we have an international sporting event, that there's so much disdain for international politics now and doubt, but this was one of the institutions that everyone can come together. And for that reason, I think based on the evidence that's been presented, which is damning in terms of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, 2012, the London Olympics, they have to be banned. They have to be banned, because if they're not, there is no tradition of expectation in future sporting events, and the Russians and others will simply think they can get away with it. It brings disrepute to a great institution.
I do agree with you on the need to enforce the rules. The question to me is, do we check out and punish people individually or the entire team, including those who had no supplements or whatever? I like to keep it as individually oriented as possible. I remember when Jimmy Carter boycotted the Russian Olympics, and you remember all the broken hearts around that, and nobody was satisfied by that as a solution.
The
I think we need
IOC is allowed to have some Russian athletes come without the Russian team banner. So that is a potential compromise.
That's right.
No, you can't have Russian athletes come along and wearing Olympic jerseys and not representing their country, for heaven's sake.
There's everybody will know why, though.
Well, no, you can.
And they get to show their skill.
Well, make all of them go through some drug test or something like that, but don't. I just don't see any good coming out of that.
If they can make a clean break with the past. And, this is a holdover from the Cold War days when they had a very strong program of athletics, and it was very important they win all these medals, and they doped these people up and put them on steroids or whatever else. And that was it. Nobody cared back then. The rules have changed.
Make a joke about the East Germans.
It's that Rocky IV scene,
right? The rules have changed. The rules have changed, and so they've got to abide by the new rules.
If the Russians are allowed to compete, many more countries will start cheating on doping. Issue 4, buyer's remorse.
On July 14th, 2015, the United States, our P5 plus one negotiating partners, and Iran reached an agreement that blocks all of Iran's potential pathways to acquiring a nuclear weapon and, in return, lifts the nuclear-related sanctions on Iran's economy.
Secretary of State John Kerry last week celebrated the first anniversary of the Iran nuclear deal. But according to the AP, a secret side agreement will allow Iran to install advanced centrifuges 11 years from now. Those advanced centrifuges are 5 times more efficient than Iran's current machinery and would generate enough highly enriched uranium for a nuclear weapons within 6 months, starting in 2030. President Obama had previously affirmed that Iran's so-called breakout period would be 1 year. Also this week, the U.S. and Russia criticized Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for describing Iranian ballistic missile tests as, quote, not consistent with the constructive spirit, unquote, of the nuclear deal. Why did the Obama administration keep this annex secret, Tom?
Because I think they felt that if they were truly honest about the nature of the deal in terms of their dealings with Congress, and this was best reflected by Ben Rhodes in the New York Times article a couple of months back, if they felt they were truly honest, they couldn't get it through. But here's the problem. This deal, in terms of the Iranians, again, you've seen the ballistic missile testing. They are building those missiles for a reason. There's a great line in Crimson Tide, you don't do X if you're not going to do X. People can infer. And the problem here is that they will do that ballistic missiles, they will get that enrichment capacity, and then they will break out because the Chinese, the Russians, and the Europeans will never come back. And the final point here is that the problem with the region is that it makes all those paranoid actors who are not good allies, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, obsessed about Iranian empowerment in the region and throw money against Salafi groups to counter them. So you see this spiraling.
First of all, the ballistic missiles were never part of the nuclear deal. They were separate. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, you have a very aggressive lobby in this country working to undermine this deal in coordination with Israel. And trying to undermine the economic benefits that are supposed to flow to Iran for being part of this deal. Boeing would like to sell them planes. It's a
revolutionary
big deal, and they need it. Their commercial airlines are falling apart, and the lobby in this country, in coordination with the U.S. Congress, mostly Republicans, are trying to stop that deal. If Iran doesn't see economic benefits, the hardliners in that country will work to kill the deal. So, the hardliners of both countries are in concert here. The deal is holding, but it's fragile.
I agree with Eleanor. I think it is a good deal in this sense. I think Iran decided in 2003, as our agency said, not to build nuclear weapons, and then they got the sanctions lifted for not doing what they weren't going to do anyhow. I don't believe Iran wants an atomic bomb or is seeking an atomic bomb. All its 4 plants are under inspection. They've done everything along with the deal. I do believe Iran, there are 2 Irans. There's part of it that we're hoping for and working for, those guys that voted to overthrow Ahmadinejad, and there's a Basiji militia, there's the Republican Guard, there's the Ayatollah, there's some of these experts. But I agree with Eleanor. What are they going to do with these Boeing 787s? Somebody said they're going to turn them into transport planes.
Right.
You could shoot those things down like cows in a field.
The Revolutionary Guards own the companies.
What do you think they're going to do? Who are they going to
They're
start
not
a
going to
war
use them
with?
to blow stuff. Anyway, they're not.
I was going to say this is an area where Pat and I actually agree that there's not an imminent threat here. Thank you.
3-on-1,
and that before the deal, Iran was going lickety split right down the path to development. We've at least been able to buy time, a lot of time, with this deal.
And the Energy Secretary responded to that so-called secret deal and said does nothing to change the length of the breakout time. So I mean, it's basically.
There's in both countries that want to end the deal because they want to get together and go at it again.
Exactly.
But you are right that there are those people in Iran who are young, moderate. There are political movements. Rouhani, more realist. But at the same time, Khamenei is still the leader. You look what they're doing in Beirut. I mean, it's not about us, and it's not about Israel. But, Google Hariri. This is what the Iranians do.
They should at least have commercial planes they're not afraid to get on.
I don't have a problem with the commercial planes. I have a problem with a deal that empowers the Revolutionary Guards with the money that comes from the deal.
It's their money.
Predictions, Pat.
Post-convention polls will show a significant lift for the Donald, Eleanor.
But Hillary will come back a week later. I just want to give kudos to the city of Cleveland and the police force in Cleveland for maintaining security and also protecting the rights of the protesters.
100% what both Eleanor and Pat said, but I also want to say Levi Shirley, who's a young American who just died in Syria fighting with the Kurds, always wanted to join the Marines, couldn't get in, but is a tribute to the exceptionalism of this country, and he'll be remembered.
Hear, hear. Well, I predict that the Democrats will run all speeches next week through anti-plagiarism software before they are delivered.
I predict if he wins the presidency, Donald Trump will choose Chris Christie for his Attorney General. Bye-bye.